This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, don't forget to check us out on YouTube. We have a terrific YouTube channel, even though this guy has the face built for radio. My guests do not. And it's always more fun to watch than to listen. You can listen on Apple and Spotify, but you can watch on YouTube. So check us out. Search for The PR Podcast. Just make sure you put the in there because there's only one The PR Podcast. And you will come up with our bright orange graphic and you'll know you're in the right place. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and watch episodes as well as listen. Now let's get on with our show for today. We got a really interesting guest. Tara Goodwin is a Boston-based crisis communications expert and the founder of Goodwin Consulting. For more than 30 years, she has helped CEOs, public figures, and major brands manage high-pressure moments with confidence and credibility. Her career spans Fortune 500 clients, political leaders, and household names. Get this, she's guided Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in launching their nonprofits. She advised Aerosmith's Kramer during his public legal battle, and she's helped countless executives navigate the course of public opinion. Tara is also a sought-after international speaker and a Vistage workshop leader, teaching leaders how to prepare for and thrive through crisis. She's been featured in Business Insider for her expert take on reputation strategy, and her new book, Manage the Message, Change the Outcome, An Executive's Guide to Crisis Management, launched just this month. Tara, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thanks, Jody. I'm excited to be here.
Great to have you on. Now, you have said that every organization, big or small, needs a crisis plan. I could not agree more. But in your own words, tell us why.
Well, I go back to my speaking workshops, and when I'm standing in front of a group of CEOs, I ask two questions. How many of you have a dedicated crisis plan inside your organization that can guide you at a moment's notice should your worst case scenario be realized? Less than a quarter of the hands go up. Second question, how many of you have a dedicated crisis team inside your organization, people that you can lean on to help you guide the crisis? Same quarter of the hands go up. What happens in my business is a CEO will have a crisis. We will help them navigate through it. And after it's over, they'll turn to me and say, we need a plan. And Jody, it's backwards. And so my mission is to go out there and educate CEOs, leaders, nonprofit organizations, anyone that has touch points with key audiences that need to be managed in crisis. And I try to teach them the fundamentals. It's not hard, but no one wants to do it.
Yeah, I feel like crisis is one of those things where, we think either we don't want to think about it or it's not going to happen to us or gee whiz, there are just so many more important things. And boy, a crisis can just blow everything up, right?
I call it kicking the can down the road. And the reason that most CEOs don't want to do it, it's interesting to say this, but frankly, it's not a revenue generating event. So they say, we'll get to it next quarter, or maybe we'll do it next year. I love what you said, but we can't quite get to it now. Well, the bottom line is, with AI, with smart people around you, there's no reason why you can't have the basics of a crisis plan for your organization so that you are ready, because the whole key to effectively communicating in a crisis is being prepared.
So let's talk about some of those, what you call those non-negotiables of a crisis plan or crisis strategy. What are some of those non-negotiables?
Top 4. So the first one is sit down with yourself and your team and imagine the unimaginable. Think about where your vulnerabilities lie and your worst case scenarios that could happen to you personally or to your company. Data breach, number one security, cyber attack concern of CEOs today. Accidents. If you have trucks on the road and people driving them, you are liable for any kind of accidents. Have you ever seen a truck overturned on the highway, spilling some noxious liquid, and then there's a TV camera overhead shooting down on it, right? And one of the scenarios that most people don't think about, but I urge them to, and they don't want to, it's their own death. What happens if they don't wake up in the morning? Do they have a succession plan? Do their employees know what they need to do? We had a situation where a business partner of mine was working with a CEO. He was leaving a Boston Bruins game, 35 years old, and dropped dead on the way home. Massive heart attack. He had 3 business deals that were in process, but they were all on post-it notes or in his head. And she had to work with the remaining staff to try to cobble those deals back together. She was able to save 2 out of the 3, but she could have saved all 3 had there been a succession plan and had that information been shared with other people on the team.
That's got to come down to, and maybe I'm overdriving the headlights a little bit here, but using that example,
Mhm.
sometimes we keep things to ourselves. And I never really thought of, the crisis being somebody's death, but it is true. Um, it comes down to trust. You've got to have other people you can trust, whether it's dealing with the overturned tanker on the highway, like you said, or the death of the executive. Somebody's got to be able to step in, right?
100%. And that's the beauty of a crisis team. And regardless of the size of your organization, you can have a crisis team in your organization. It could be 2 or 3 people. It could be an outside group like a Vistage or a CEO group, but you have to have people to help you navigate through it. Because the last thing that you want to do in a crisis when you are rattled is make decisions by yourself. It's a lonely place to be, and chances are you're not going to get it right.
Yeah, you're probably also going to focus on the things that seem most important to you and develop. And we've all got blind spots, right? We've all got
Yes,
things that we don't see just naturally. Um,
absolutely.
Clients also, when we get into crisis situations, and for the purposes of this show, we talk about crisis with media.
Mhm.
Clients tend to want to push that easy button, make it all go back to the way it was. You and I both know it doesn't work that way. But how do you walk people through the steps of a crisis? Are there steps as far as you're concerned?
Yes, there are absolutely steps. For example, let's assume that you are prepared so that you've imagined your worst case scenarios. You've created a dummy scenario around it. So let's say it's a robbery and you have all of the particulars and you figure out what's going to happen and you have a statement and you update your list. So let's assume you have all of that ready to go. The first thing that you have to do after that is find out as much information as you can at that time. Crisis is not linear. You get bits and pieces of information that you have to put together to the best of your knowledge. And that's why you need people around you to be able to get that information. Then, once you have answered as many questions as you can at that time, you determine a response scenario and how are you going to respond. A lot of times people will want to be extremely defensive or over communicate. And I call that killing the ant with a cannonball. You don't necessarily want to do that, but you want to make sure that your message is clear and that it answers most of the questions for the time being so that you put your stake in the ground before somebody else identifies the crisis in your company.
Yeah, and I feel like, speaking of that, over communicating or giving answers to questions that you don't have the answer to yet is probably these unforced errors, right?
Yes.
Are probably the worst things that people can do, because there's that, whether it's a human emotion or whether it's a CEO style emotion, a leadership style emotion, we got it. We got it figured out. And you really, as a crisis evolved, like you said, you don't have it figured out. And I guess, what is your advice to leaders as they find themselves in a crisis and they don't have the answers that they wish they did?
You ask yourself this question: what would the average person who is associated with our company or has some kind of stake in our business expect us to say or do right now? Answer that question, because when you're in a crisis, a lot of times you're thinking about, you've got a defensive posture. You want to tell everybody, I didn't do it. This isn't right. You want to get your side of the story out, but you neglect to think about how it's going to be perceived by the audiences who mean the most to you. And that is something that, with a little preparation, you can identify your audience segments and determine what it is that they want to see and hear from you at that particular moment in crisis.
Yeah, that's that speed versus accuracy dichotomy that you
It
talk about. Is that
is.
in the book as well? The
Yes,
speed versus
yes, it is.
accuracy?
And you can have both, But the only way that you can have both is to really have done the legwork of preparation. Otherwise, you're going to sacrifice one for another every time. And if it's speed, you may have to walk back a statement or add to it, or it may be misinterpreted. And then you could potentially have a secondary crisis. And we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, secondary crisis also potentially being a lawsuit or
Absolutely.
some other revolt of some kind, right?
Indeed. Yes.
Compounding your troubles. Um, you clearly have your arms wrapped around crisis in such an effective way here, and it's not surprising that you've advised everyone from Fortune 500 CEO companies to folks like Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I'll put aside my Giants allegiance for just a moment there. But tell us about working with high-profile people like that. I mean, they've got to be demanding, and they're probably the ones sitting across the table going, "Make this right now," right?
Well, I never worked with them specifically in crisis. I worked with both Bill and Tom with their charitable foundations. But one thing that I can tell you about both of them is they were laser focused and prepared. And regardless of what you think of them or their phenomenal record over the years working together, it truly was a game of preparedness. Bill would analyze films every which way, every single week after a game. He would break it down into the minutia. Tom was into his TB12 recovery method. He would practice, he would do drills. I mean, that was his life at the time when he was playing for the Patriots. And they understood the value of being prepared at every juncture. And the same translates to crisis. It's important to think about what could potentially happen to you and your business, because I've seen too many businesses be destroyed, reputations go right out the window. I mean, look at what happened this summer with Astronomer. A CEO and the director of HR lost their job for inappropriate interactions on a jumbotron at Gillette Stadium, where you give implied permission when you walk into a venue to be recorded. So, and you say to yourself, why didn't they think of it? Because they didn't. And so many people just walk through life blindly and don't think about the consequences of their actions.
And that turns into not only a very public crisis, a very public problem with audiences external to the organization, but also to a crisis of confidence within an organization. And another thing that you talk about in the book is this failure to communicate with employees. I mean, I think we all, as PR people, agree employees or people inside the four walls of your organization are probably your best cheerleaders. They are your most important ambassadors. And if you lose them, you're in a bad spot, right?
100%. And a lot of times when a crisis is going on, leaders will start to communicate outward, but they don't think of the most important audience inside the organization. Those people who are driving the bus, making the decisions, and running the company every single day. And if they are left out, to your point, Jody, it's going to be bad because there's water cooler chatter. They're going to make some assumptions that probably aren't necessarily true, and they will be driving the conversation. And then again, the leader is going to have to walk it back or apologize or try to calm the waters.
Is it, I know every situation is different, but is it as simple as the internal employee email? Is it the, all hands meeting in a conference room or an amphitheater? I mean, how are employees best communicated with?
So it can be any number of communications, but what I tell leaders is do it in the way that you normally do it. If you have individual staff meetings with managers, great. And maybe there's a statement from the CEO or there's a video from the CEO that they show and dissect if it's a large company. Or maybe the CEO goes on video and addresses the whole company and they have breakout groups. Maybe it's a memo. But however your communication structure is focused inside your organization should be the way in which you communicate. Because if you never do staff meetings and you call a meeting, all of a sudden people are going to be putting questions in their head. They're writing the narrative before anyone ever speaks because it's just not something that they're used to. So the suspicions already bubble to the surface.
Yeah, and the grapevine runs and rumors run wild, and so I guess maybe half the game is just course correcting the ship and making sure that your story, the factually accurate story, is the one that resounds.
And employees, yes, 100%. Employees in a crisis can be your greatest asset, but if they're not fed and cared for, they can be your worst nightmare. And that's what I tell leaders because I've seen it happen.
Yeah, for sure. You have also worked on things like product recalls, and we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Joey Kramer from Aerosmith. Fantastic band.
I love Aerosmith.
What was it like working with Joey Kramer? That was sort of an infamous moment in that band's history.
Yes.
Could you walk us through how you worked with him?
Sure. So several years ago, I got a call from an attorney friend of mine who basically told me that Joey Kramer was suing Aerosmith because they told him that he was out of the band, that he no longer had the chops to play in Aerosmith. And Joey was going to sue the band because that was a year that they were getting two major awards. One was from the Grammys, and the other one was from Music Cares. And these were big organizations honoring a rock and roll band that had been together for 50 years. And so there's this infighting and things are going on. And Joey decided that he wanted to sue the band because he did not think that this was fair at this juncture in his career. So we asked Joey, what is it that you want at this stage of your life? You know, you don't necessarily need to play anymore. And he said, all I want to do is play the drums. And so what we did was a drumming instructor, one of the top drumming instructors in the country, was hired to actually audition Joey for his own job. And it turned out that he could, in fact, play the drums. The next thing that we did from a PR strategy was we knew where Aerosmith was rehearsing. And so we sent Joey to rehearsals knowing full well he was going to be turned away. And if you know Joey Kramer, he's not a very tall man. So imagine this man with a backpack with two drumsticks poking out, walking up to an Aerosmith rehearsal only to be turned away by very large, burly Aerosmith security guards. So we had TMZ there capturing it and running it again and again and again. And then we had a hashtag bring back Joey. The fans expressed their displeasure, and eventually Joey was asked to come back to the band. He couldn't play in the Grammys, unfortunately, because the rehearsals had gone too far. It was too close to the actual event, but he did get to go to the Music Cares Awards. And then a short time later, he left the band on his own steam.
Wow, great story. And the part about enlisting the support of the fans jumps right out at me, because they're probably the most important audience of all, right?
100%. And I have to be honest with you, Jody. I am an Aerosmith fan. Love Joe Perry, Steven Tyler, grew up on them, listening to their music, still listen to their music. But at this juncture, a part of me was just saying, why are we acting this way? Why are we acting like we're in eighth grade having fights against each other? Every single person in that band has had issues at one time or another. And why can't we all just get along and celebrate something that was absolutely magical in your career?
Yeah, those fights always always befuddle me too. Because like guys who have just such amazing success, right? Unless someone's done something that's literally criminal, that
It's
you
true.
need to get them away from you. What's the deal, man? Very middle school. Very middle school. Well, let's talk.
Absolutely.
Let's round out our conversation here and talk a little bit more about your new book on crisis leadership. Drop the name of that again, and then tell us what it's all about.
Sure, it's called Manage the Message, Change the Outcome, An Executive's Guide to Crisis Management. And I've taken stories from the trenches of crisis management. All have been vetted in the public. So there's nothing, confidential that has been disclosed in the book. But it's designed to illustrate why it's important to prepare for crisis. And so every chapter focuses on one element of crisis management. There's actually a workbook embedded into the book that people can write in, and they can actually look at creating their own crisis plan. I have a chapter on AI that talks about why you should use it and how you shouldn't use it when cobbling together a crisis plan for your organization. So there are a lot of helpful hints and tips, and I break it down into very easy to read chapters that have some stories and a little bit of humor because crisis is a serious topic, but I also like to infuse humor into it to make it a little bit less serious.
Is there one big takeaway you hope people will get from the book?
It's not if you're ever going to have a crisis, it's when and how severe. So preparation is 100% essential and should be part of every CEO's long-term plan.
Great place to end it up, Tara. Thanks so much for coming on the show today and sharing your story.
Jody, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
We are not done with you yet, however. We are going to segue now into the rapid fire question portion of our podcast. This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio. We ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions meant to elicit a simple answer, maybe a laugh or two with your indulgence. Tara Goodwin, let's begin with rapid fire question number 1. What is your favorite news source?
Reuters and Associated Press.
Big guns,
They're
bringing
tied.
out the big guns.
They're tied.
I can still hear the dot matrix printer in the corner of the newsroom. Kicking out that coffee.
I'm old school. What can I tell you?
Rapid fire question number 2. What's your favorite social media platform?
LinkedIn for business, for sure.
For sure. Rapid fire question number 3. Coffee or alcohol?
Coffee, but I also like alcohol every once in a while.
Love it. Rapid fire question number 4. What's your favorite on the run food? Give us a little Massachusetts flavor here.
So, well, this is a chain. I mean, I could tell you that I like fish, but I really don't eat seafood, so I can't do that. But right across the street from my office, there is a Jersey Mike's, and I absolutely love tuna on rosemary focaccia bread.
Oh, I love that rosemary focaccia. That sounds good. Now I'm hungry.
And I get a little mini, and it's kind of my go-to if I'm on the road, jumping in the car. It's easy to go down, and it tastes pretty good and reasonably healthy.
Perfect. Rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
Never want to stop. I want to keep going, Jody, as long as I am still relevant and have stories to share and people find me valuable.
No doubt of that, Tara. This has been a great conversation. Please let people know how they can find you online.
Sure. It's goodwin-consulting.com. That's my website. Also on social media under Goodwin Consulting. And you can find me under Tara Goodwin on LinkedIn.
All right. We'll put all the links in the show notes. Thanks again, Tara. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Apple. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.